9 days of being off track was the tipping point for the government to legislate striking Canadian Pacific employees back to work. Federal Labour Minister Lisa Raitt pushed the bill through in order to lessen the impact the strike could have on the Canadian economy. Rail in this country employs 32,000 people, pays $2.5 billion in wages, and creates 50,000 indirect rail supplier jobs. It's a sector that has historically been the backbone of Canada's economy, but it's also gaining new momentum. Michael Bourque is the newly appointed president and CEO of the Railway Association of Canada. So, Michael Bourque, we talk about momentum, and I'm actually thinking first of this big boardroom battle that's been going on between CN and CP. The main issue being the fact that CP doesn't seem to have any momentum in terms of its profitability. Its net profit is around 10%, and the industry average is 20%. From your view, what's the issue at CP?
Well, I'm not sure I really want to get into the specifics of CP, but I think what you can see from the interest through all of this is that investors are seeing the potential of rail, the importance in the future for rail, and all of the upside potential. And I think that's why there's been so much activity. Obviously, those people think that they can run that railroad, increase profits, and ultimately drive the share price up for everybody's benefit.
There's another topic on the minds of investors regarding Canadian rail operators and its unions. This latest strike brought forth this whole idea that in an infrastructure, in a service that's so important to many, many other businesses in Canada that require the supply delivered by rail, that perhaps the union model isn't working for anybody anymore. Is this something you have to deal with now going forward? Because investors just watched this strike and watched the damage it did to the railroad, to Canadians, and to Canadian businesses.
Well, to answer your question, no, it's not something I have to deal with, but it is something that the railway companies have to deal with. And I think you've identified a very significant issue, and there was a lot of debate during the strike of whether it's an essential service or not. For sure, it's an important part of the economy. In the railway sector, we move 72% of everything in this country. And so 3 out of 4 things in front of you have moved by rail. And when you stop delivering those things, and CP accounts for about 45% of that business, then a lot of different people are impacted.
Absolutely. So now the business is growing, though. Is that right?
Absolutely. The business is just fantastic right now, and there really is a renaissance in rail, and it's not just for freight, but also for people within cities and between cities. There's a tremendous amount of support for rail, but certainly on the freight side, what we're seeing is that we're transporting more and more goods. We're producing more resources in this country, from mining to potash to agricultural products and energy, and they are all being transported by rail. In fact, I spoke with an operator last week who is now transporting shale oil from Saskatchewan all the way to New Brunswick, and that's an example of something new that's happening.
While we battle out building a pipeline to the west coast, or even to the south where we're having this discussion, why doesn't rail take a bigger role in transporting Canada's most important resource, oil, produced in the oil sands? Why doesn't it participate more in that?
Well, it's a very good question, Kevin, and in fact, CP, because we were talking about them, has done quite a bit to win a lot of the business in the southern part of Saskatchewan and transport energy products there. And we are seeing a growing number of, or amount of business in the energy sector traveling on rail. And 5 years ago, nobody would have expected that so much bitumen and oil could travel by rail. But in fact, it's already happening. It's almost 25% of the business right now.
Let's go back to this back to work legislation. A lot of commentators are suggesting the fact that the government has stepped in is actually going to make it even more difficult for Canadian Pacific to get some of the concessions that it may have been able to get if negotiations had continued with the union. What's your view of that?
Well, I'm not sure I have a view. I think what is really important is that people work in this economy. We're in a very fragile economy, as you know, because we've gone through the recession and now there are additional concerns in Europe. My belief is that anybody who is operating in Canada today after the big recession in 08-09 is globally competitive. And we can't take that for granted because it is just such a competitive, interconnected world that we live in. And so I'm much happier knowing that the parties are still talking while at the same time the railway is working, because as I said earlier, it is such an impact on so many customers, people, farmers, foresters, all kinds of workers in this country who rely on getting their product to market, and the rail companies are absolutely essential for doing that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Bourque.
I thank you.